everyone, and welcome back to Serial Chronicles. And today, we have a story for you. The story is about Belle Gunness, the serial killer and her stalker. We all know what a black widow spider is and the acts it commits after mating. Just like this, our antagonist Belle Gunness had her way with men and some of her children, which all ended in a jealous barn flame. Belle Gunness was a prolific killer of her time. Her level of cold-bloodedness knew no bounds, and even her own children fell victim to her wrath. Multiple men fell to their demise in Belle Gunness' web as she sucked them dry. I would say for the time, she found a niche of murder for money. Follow me and let's journey through the mind of this depraved serial killer. Before starting the video, I invite you to leave a like and subscribe to my channel to see more content like this. Without further ado, let's get to this maniacal story. Belle Gunness, formerly known as Brunhild Sorset, was born to a humble family in Norway in 1859. She immigrated to the United States with the intention to improve her economic standing. This was an easier time to immigrate to the United States. Before moving to the US, an unfortunate event occurred. Belle was pregnant and beaten by the baby's father and had a miscarriage. This caused a change in her personality. The baby father died a month later. This may have been her first murder. In 1883, she sailed to America. Little did anyone know the trouble that was about to land on the US shores. A woman with the determination to succeed and had no problems getting her hands dirty. At the age of 25, in the year 1884, she moved to Chicago and met Mads Sorensen. They married. Her ambition led her to open a confectionery store. The store was not that successful, and a stroke of luck prevailed, and in a year, it burnt down. Luckily, the store was insured, and Belle and Mads collected the insurance. The insurance money provided for them to buy another house so that they were able to live. Belle and Mads had 4 children: Caroline, Axel, Myrtle, and Lucky. These 4 children would soon be 2. In 1896 and 1898, Caroline and Axel died. And again, luckily for Belle, the children had insurance. Their death was attributed to acute colitis, which is a chronic digestive disease characterized by inflammation of the inner lining of the colon. Same symptoms as poisoning. The insurance company paid off the life insurance. So, at about this time, you might be thinking, where is all this money going? And we were wondering the same thing. So now, we can understand that the police was a bit dense at that time. But how come the insurance company did not pick up on what looked like a pretty devious scam? Also, how has Mr. Mads Sorensen survived for this long? Well, on July 30th, 1900, he died from an undetermined cause, later found to be strychnine poisoning. And again, here goes Belle, who collected a life insurance policy of $8,000. Now, think about that. $8,000 was a lot in that time. The Sorensen family had no doubts. Clearly, his death was due to poisoning. Although there were several intentions for justice to implement an investigation, nothing was achieved, and Belle got away with it, with the money and the murder. By now, I'm guessing suspicions were high, and she determined that she had to move. With the money obtained in 1902 through her rampage of killing all these men, she bought a farmhouse outside of LaPorte, Indiana, where she met Peter Gunness. They were later married, and 1 week later, his son died from a virus. During this time, a bit of bad luck hit the couple. The boat and the carriage house were reportedly to have burnt to the ground shortly after she acquired the property. Apparently, we are not only talking about a serial killer, but also a compulsive arsonist, and we knew that she had her run-ins with fire and insurance scams. Belle was married to Peter Gunness on April 1st, 1902, and then he died in December 1902. So in less than 7 months, she had massacred another husband. Peter died when a meat grinder mysteriously fell on his head. And by now, as we all know, her modus operandi was usually to collect the insurance. Now, I would say this is part 2 of her scam. She wanted to expand her net of suitors so she could make some more money. So as we notice, as time for expansion, Belle placed an ad in the Norwegian paper seeking men who could take care of her. She told them to convert their stocks and assets into cash, as the banks are not to be trusted. She also stated to sew it into their clothing as they journeyed to the United States. She had several suitors over the next few years. Suitor John Moo brings $1,000 to Belle, and as we can imagine, he disappears from her farm within a week. Several other suitors, including Peter Carson and Ole Budseberg, met the same fate. So now, no insurance was involved, just Belle collecting these men's money and murdering them. Within all this chaos, Belle managed to have a son, born in spring of 1903, named Philip. This did not stop her rampage. None of her children could stop her. Belle had several suitors over the next few years, and all fell to the same fate. But now, the insurance company was not involved, because this was a different ploy, and at that time, very smart. Think about this. Belle was scamming the insurance company by killing her husbands. Now with this ad placed in the Norwegian newspapers, and her advice to bring cash was a clean way to get away with murders. These men were not part of the community, so it could be said that them going missing would not be really looked at by the authorities, as there was nobody to complain of it. At this point, it is obvious that Belle is a killer of fortune, and no one was safe. But there's one thing that I could not understand about this whole case. Belle had a foster daughter. Her name was Jeannie, and it was reported that she went to school in Los Angeles, but not much was heard from her. As we figured out, she was killed. Her body was later found in the yard. This was a bit confusing, as her modus operandi was to poison and collect the insurance. This was totally different. The story gets a bit mysterious from here. In the spring of 1907, she meets Ray Lamphere and hires him. Take note of this, as it is to be important later on in the story. In 1907, she purchased a wedding ring with a new man, and as we guess, he disappeared. At this point, you can see the trends, and we know her modus operandi, and what happens to the suitors as soon as they become liquid, meaning cash in hand. Their lives are extinguished by Belle Gunness. This is where the plot thickens. The hired hand, Ray Lamphere, was deeply in love with Gunness. He performed any chore for her, no matter how gruesome. We could only imagine. He became jealous of the many men who arrived to court his employer and begun to make a scene. She fired him on February 3rd, 1908. Shortly after dispensing with Lambert, she presented herself at the Lamport courthouse. She declared that her former employee was not in his right mind and was a menace to the public. She somehow convinced local authorities to hold a sanity hearing. Lamphere was pronounced sane and released. Now keep note of this part. In January 1908, she meets Andrew Helglin, forgive me if I butchered the name, and becomes engaged. He went to the bank and withdrew his savings with Belle in tow and disappears. Well, as we know, the usual modus operandi happened. But now, Helgen's brother became suspicious of Gunness, and her luck seemed to be running out. Her farmhouse burnt to the ground. In the smoldering ruins, workmen discovered 4 skeletons. 3 were identified as her foster children. However, the 4th, believed to be Gunness, was inexplicably missing its skull. After the fire, her victims were unearthed from their shallow graves around the farm. All told, the remains of more than 40 men and children were exhumed. Ray Lamphere, Gunness' hired hand, was arrested for the murder and arson, but cleared of murder. He died in prison, but not before revealing the truth about Belle Gunness and her crimes, including burning her own house down. This is where things becomes murky. There is claims that she staged her death, and people has claimed to seeing her across the country. On the other hand, the dental records stated that she died in the blaze that her love interest / stalker had created. This is truly a twist. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you on the next video.